Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I'm going to continue working on our experimentation with creating a visual effect, background image, and blurriness like they do over at TED.com. So in the last video, this is where I left off, and basically we've got this background image up here in this main figure, and then we've got the same background image in the lower part in the fig caption. And I just did a little bit of positioning, and that kind of created this weird illusion where the images kind of pieced together, because I wasn't seeing the main part of the background, or the bottom part of the background image before. But we're going to work with that. So I've got my figure, which is up here, feature 1. I've got the fig caption, which is down here, but where the blurriness and the text obviously going to come into play are in here in the fig caption. So I've got this div, which I'm going to blur, and I've got this paragraph, which I want to mess with. So really, since I want to blur the div, I don't want to get into putting my blur and stuff on the actual fig caption. So I really need to do a little bit of adjusting here. So let me go ahead and take my feature 1, and this is going to be my feature BG. So basically I'm going to style my feature background here, and this is where I also want to do some position absolute. So I'm going to position it absolute. It can be 0 pixels from the top. It can be 0 pixels from the left. I want the width to be 100%, and I want the height to be 100%. I want this div, and that's what this is, by the way, it's a div. I want this div to fill up the fig caption space. Now, the background image, I actually want my background not in the fig caption itself, but actually in the div. And we shouldn't notice too much of a difference here, because now my div is on here. Don't worry about that text being temporarily covered up. But so now the div has my fig caption. I'm sorry, has my background image. So I can follow up with filter, blur, and I'll put in something like 15 pixels. See how that looks. And I can really blur that bottom portion. Of course, you're seeing this yellow, that orange background, so I don't really need that anymore. But I think I would like something. I don't know. How about if I just did like a gray? So it doesn't get too light looking. And now you've got the blurry portion of the lower portion of this image. And that's kind of what's going on over here. It's just super blurry and you can't really see. Now they've got all these great dark colors. Now we could enhance the blur by changing it to 16 or 17 pixels or something like that. And you can kind of play around with the blur to get to something that you like. I don't know if you're noticing this at all, but I'm getting a little bit of blur shadow spillover outside of the fig caption. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go up to my fig caption here, and I'm going to put in an overflow hidden. This is going to hide any overflow from the fig caption. So kind of look down here as I refresh my browser, and you'll see that that's gone. So it's taking care of that overflow. Now I just need to deal with the text. So on my text, it's basically a paragraph within my feature 1. And I just need to style this text in a way that I want, but I still need to position it also. So I'm going to do a position absolute, and let's see, I'm going to go ahead and put in, you know what, I think I'll just do 0 pixels from the top, 0 pixels from the left. I'm going to set its width to be 100%, and I'm going to set its height to be 100%. So this paragraph is going to fill up the fig caption, just like my background, my blurry background is filling up the fig caption. So that we can really see this text, I'm going to go ahead and set the font family to Verdana. I'll set the font size to 2M. Might have to play around with that. And I want the color of this text to be bright white. Let's see how that's looking. Okay, pretty good. I'd like a little bit more spacing and stuff, so you can see how there's space on the left and the right. And I think I'm just going to do that with a bit of padding. So I'll just do padding of 15 pixels, or I can do 1em on all four sides. That's a little bit too much. Dial that back to 0.5em, liking that a little bit better. And I'm also going to go ahead and set my font weight to bold. There we go. And so we're starting to get this nice text overlay. And I think that's looking pretty good. Obviously, there's some more text on there we could put in, but I would probably style this in the same way. I'd probably style this text so that it was positioned in the lower left corner of the Fig caption. And that should work out fine. And of course, I'd want to make sure that I'm never using a title that's more than 2 lines long. It's okay that it wraps to multiple lines. And if I felt like I needed more room, then instead of perhaps using 25% for the height of my Fig captions, maybe I'll use 30%, which means I also need to be careful where I position it, negative 30%, and that'll give me a little bit more room to work with, and I can still create the effect that I want. So I hope you enjoyed this, and perhaps maybe you'll apply it to a website that you're working on. So this is the feature effect over here at TED.com, showing a background image and then a very blurry version of the bottom of that background image with a text overlay. And there's my take on it. Talk to you later.